Welcome to Withdraw Consent. I'm Victor. This is Jack. So, Jack, what really happened with Julian Assange?
What really did happen? So basically, I watched the documentary on Netflix, We Steal Secrets.
Okay.
And then I tasked you with watching it. Mm-hmm. Right. So that we could discuss this, and we haven't previously discussed it. I'm very interested in your opinion.
Okay. Just like in general?
Like, what do you think about Julian Assange? And his persecution by the United States, or whatever you want to call it.
Well, I have no problem with him disseminating information, I guess. It was interesting how America didn't care initially, and then he reached some threshold where they just came down on him with all the stuff that you would, like if you were to predict all the fake things or whatever that were going to happen, they all started happening to him when he hit. Okay,
that's an interesting point. So normally, what really happened, we go break down all the details, like factually, historically. This one's a little bit different.
Okay.
Because this time I just want to talk about, we know who he is.
Okay.
He did the WikiLeaks. I didn't know that he had created WikiLeaks way before, and it exposed a bunch of things.
Right.
I didn't understand that. I thought WikiLeaks was just this one-time thing. And then, so let me ask you this.
Okay.
This Bradley Manning, who's now Chelsea Manning,
mm-hmm.
leaked these secrets. What do you think about this Bradley Manning? Do you think he or her, whatever, should go to jail for doing that? Like, do you think that's legitimate?
Well, based on the rules of the military, he broke the rules.
Right.
So in that sense, from their perspective, I understand sending him to jail.
Right.
But should those have been secrets? I don't think so. I mean, that's where the issue was.
Right.
That shouldn't have been bad.
Right. Some of the stuff, though, like the rules of engagement should have still been kept secret because that's private. Okay. But the stuff like the Apache helicopter shooting the journalists and the children and all the things, that should have been, people should have been just court-martialed and executed for that,
Yeah.
And then laughing and okay. So I agree with you 100%. Now, the thing with Julian Assange is that he's a journalist, and so he's protected, right, by the First Amendment, and he can leak all these things. So why are they going after him then if he's protected by the First Amendment? Is this a violation of the First Amendment?
It doesn't seem like it is.
But why not? He just published these things, right?
But that doesn't make it a violation. Isn't that just him publishing things? I don't.
Right, but the argument, the free Julian Assange argument is, hey, the New York Times does this all the time. They get a whistleblower, calls them up, hey, I got some documents, you want to see them? Sure. They send them over, they say, wow, this is a big story, they publish them. The Washington Post tries to protect their source, but if these documents were obtained by the source illegally, that person's still going to jail, but the New York Times won't go to jail for publishing them because they got the First Amendment right.
Right.
So why are they going after Julian Assange?
Oh, why him specifically?
Yeah, but how can they go after him? Free Julian Assange, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they're just trying to make an example of, like, you go too far, or, I mean, he hit some trigger with them where they, again, were...
So this is the point of my video.
Okay.
And don't click off right now, but I'm going to argue that the free Julian Assange people are wrong.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that they should go after Julian Assange. Now, hold on a second. I'm going to read you from the Justice Department their claim.
Okay.
Okay, so here it is. Little wordy, 2 sentences, 1 paragraph. The superseding indictment alleges that Assange was complicit with Chelsea Manning, a former intelligence analyst in the U.S. Army, in unlawfully obtaining and disclosing classified documents related to national defense. We don't got anything there, but now the next one's going to go into detail and say what the crime was. Specifically, the superseding indictment alleges that Assange conspired with Manning, obtained from Manning and aided and abetted her in obtaining classified information with reason to believe that the information was to be used to the injury of the United States or the advantage of a foreign nation, received and attempted to receive classified information, having reason to believe that such materials would be obtained, taken, made, and disposed of by a person contrary to law, and aided and abetted Manning in communicating classified documents to Assange.
Okay, that is a lot to process.
Okay, so the government's claim is this. I could call the Washington Post right now and say, hey, I've got Pentagon papers. I don't, but say I do. And they could say, okay, we'll protect your anonymity, and then they can publish them. They're fine. But what if I called the New York Times, we'll say, and I say, hey, I'm an intelligence officer. I'm thinking about hacking some documents. What do you think? And the New York Times says, yeah, you probably should do that. Well, I need a little bit of help doing it because I can't break through these passwords. New York Times says, oh, I can help you break through those passwords. And then I'm not sure if I should do this. And the New York Times says, yeah, I know you really should do it. Let's get on it. New York Times is now aiding and abetting the crime. See, Julian Assange didn't just receive documents, right?
Okay.
He was propositioned like, hey, I don't have any documents. Should I steal documents? Yes, you should, Julian Assange said, because it's for the greater good. Now, if I was Julian Assange, I still would have done what he did. Okay. If I was Bradley Manning, I would have still done what he did, or she, whatever, because they're sacrificing themselves for the greater truth.
Okay.
But it is a sacrifice of Julian Assange. So he has 17 Espionage Act charges, and one is a conspiracy to commit computer fraud. Because in the documentary, we saw the message where she messaged him and said, hey, can you help me hack these personal passwords so I can get into more files? And he said, sure, here's the resources. He gave her the resources because he's a hacker.
Right.
And a journalist. He gave her the resources.
I see what you're saying.
See, he was a Bradley Manning. He wasn't a New York Post sitting there just getting a document down. He was involved with aiding and abetting, and then that's what the charge claims.
So then what is I feel like you mentioned that Obama did something with Manning's sentence?
Right. So Manning got sentenced to 35 years in military prison, and then in 2017, January, before he was leaving and Trump was coming in, he commuted the sentence to 7 years.
Okay.
And now she's Chelsea Manning now. Bradley Manning did it, Chelsea Manning now, whatever you want to say about that. Chelsea Manning's now free, ran for office, So, and they said basically that 35 years was like incredibly extreme for a leaker. It's like on the extreme end. And we know Obama was pretty rough with whistleblowers. But in this instance, he did this. Now, I also want to say that the charges, the 17 Espionage Act charges, carry 10 years maximum each. So if they were stacked consecutively, it would be 170 years plus 5 years maximum for the conspiracy to commit computer fraud.
Okay.
But my point is, and I want to know what you think about this, he aided and abetted, maybe he's accused of it, until he's proven guilty. He has to stand trial. But if he did, they've got all the communications.
Right.
And if they did, I'm saying he really committed crimes. Would I have done those crimes? Absolutely, if I was him. And I wouldn't have hidden the embassy. I would have went as a martyr. As just a full-on martyr. I would have went in there and said, yeah, because you're trash. They said, we'll give you a deal. No, I'm taking this to trial. Right. I want a jury of my peers to hear. What would you do? Of course he would lose the trial because the judge would say, you can't say all the things you want to say, which are all the things you need to say in order for them to, become compassionate and one person to just hang the jury,
Yeah.
But what do you think about that?
I can't argue your point. I mean, I can't argue against you. You're making the laws of the people in charge. He did break those laws, as you're saying, helping Manning get the documents.
Right.
But like you said, it needs to be done.
It needs to be done.
So I'm sympathetic to what he did.
Are you following the Pentagon Papers that got leaked recently?
No.
Okay. So basically what happened is at the time of filming this, it's not going to be published immediately. But at the time, basically what happened is these Pentagon Papers got put on a Discord and they sat there for 3 weeks and nobody noticed they were there. And then somebody realized they were there and started sharing them. And it's like, we got all these classified documents. And it was like, is this misinformation? Is this propaganda from Russia? We don't know. And then just a couple days ago, as of filming this, they arrested the person who did it. 21-year-old Air Force guy. I forget the name. It's kind of hard to pronounce. And they SWAT teamed him, even though they could have just walked up and knocked on his doors. And he's seen that something terrible was going on. He just leaked the papers. And I've seen people commenting on this like, how could he do this? He's throwing his whole life away. Because he's doing the right thing.
Right.
If everybody does the right thing, you know what I mean? If the response to this is 5 more leaks from the Pentagon.
Right.
And then those people all get swatted. And then the answer to that's 25 more leaks. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, the bad stuff only happens because nobody is doing anything about it.
Because nobody's doing anything. And these people are. So I commend Julian Assange, Bradley Manning definitely, for having the morality and conviction to go through with this. Yeah. And then same as this most recent guy. But it's like in the Pentagon Papers that got released now, they're saying like 200,000 Russians are dead in Ukraine. And the real truth is 8.5% of that. 17,000, right? They're saying all the Russian tanks are destroyed. They're like, okay, only a few of the Russian tanks are destroyed. They're like, barely any Ukrainians have died. They're like, no, all the Ukrainians have died, like hundreds of thousands. Like they're losing the war. July 1st comes, even if we keep sending them support, they will have no air defense ammunition at all.
Oh, wow.
July 1st. That's what these papers say. And of course, this Air Force guy's seen this and he's like, oh, we're the worst. We're just lying to America, pretending like there's this, you know what I mean, and sending all this money. So he published them. And so I'm saying my point is Julian Assange is a good guy, but he under the current system, he deserves to go to jail.
Right.
We don't want the current system to remain in power, and I hope you don't as well.
Right. A system that's on the up and up would encourage people to blow whistles.
Right.
Because they don't have anything to hide.
Right. So yeah, if this, like the newest Pentagon Papers leak, even a good system, if that leak came out, there would be massive investigations. That guy would be whisked into protective custody. Who did that? There would be massive investigations. Say who's lying to the American people, who at the Pentagon's lying, who at the media companies has been involved in this. Big show trials. You know,
Totally.
we don't do this. We do transparency. You know, and if they were doing an operation where they were like trying to convince Russian people that a lot of Russians had died, I'm fine with that. Like whatever, in a legitimate war.
Yeah.
But not the American people, so that we can steal more money from you.
Right.
And so my final opinion of Julian Assange situation on the free Assange stuff is this. Remember when Kyle Rittenhouse was at trial?
Yeah.
I had this feeling, and here was my feeling. I thought he's either going to get convicted or not. If he doesn't get convicted, that's good. If he does get convicted, we need to redouble our efforts to bring down the system so that we can bring him home.
Oh, interesting.
That was my thought. And I feel that with Julian Assange. I would love for him to be freed, but under the current system, he's not because he has broken the law, I believe, unless he can prove otherwise, or
Okay.
you know, you don't got to
Exonerate himself.
yeah, you don't got to prove you're innocent. You got to, you know what I mean?
Right.
Reasonable doubt. But I feel like if you want Julian Assange to be free, redouble your efforts to bring down the system, and let's get him out on the back end as soon as possible. And all the other people like this, like, do you want Snowden to come home? I do.
Definitely.
I want him to
100%.
come home to parades.
Yes.
I want him to do city to city parades.
Build a
you know?
statue. Yeah.
Yeah. The statues, literally,
Right.
like right where the NSA building is.
Yeah, right up front.
Yeah, statues.
I'm with you.
So I'm just saying, people who just blindly say that free Julian Assange, I think they haven't thought it through all the way. And if you do think it through all the way, I think this is a reasonable conclusion to come to. And I think people have missed it.
Yeah, no, it's great. I had not thought about it from that angle. That was good. Okay. What are your thoughts? Should Julian Assange be freed? Did he break laws? I'm not whether you agree with the laws. The laws are what they are right now. But
I don't agree with them, right?
Right. But based on how things currently are, should he have all these charges against him?
And will you redouble your efforts to bring down the system so that we can free Assange?
Yeah, if you don't agree with the laws.
If you don't agree with it and you think that people who tell the truth about this stuff should be free, join us, join somebody else, click subscribe. Let's get to collective action where we can actually do something.
Yep. Well, talk to you next time.